BookTube, Sarah here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my weekly reviews, excuse me, for June the 29th through July the 5th. So I have 8 books to talk about this week. Yes, I finished a whole bunch of books this week, so let's jump right in and get started. The first book that I finished this week was Dawn and the Older Boy, of course, by Ann M. Martin. This is a middle grade fiction novel. Book number 37 in the Babysitter's Club series. Published originally in 1990. Average rating of 3.55 stars on Goodreads. I gave this one 3 stars. So this one, my issue with this one is that, you know, besides the whole fact that he is older than her and, you know, he is, you know, for lack of a better phrase, courting her, or, you know, like, he likes her. Which, you know what, in retrospect, it's 16 to 13. Yes, do they have anything in common? Probably not. You know, he's in high school, she's in middle school, and things like that, you know. So beyond that whole fact, the thing that got me about this book was that I didn't feel like there was very much of a relationship, nor did I understand why Travis, which is the guy's name, why he kind of started, like, talking to her. So the book starts out that they're having a sleepover at Christy's house, and they go down in the morning, and Travis is there, and he's actually friends with Christy's older brother, Sam. And he's actually right between Sam and Charlie's, or Sam and, yeah, Charlie is Christy's other brother. He's between both their ages. And he, you know, he kind of takes a liking to Dawn, I guess, because they're both from California. And I guess he finds her kind of, you know, impressionable, if you will. And then a few days later, he shows up at her house with a present for her. And again, they didn't exchange more than 3 or 4 words. So A, how did he find out where she lived? You know, very creepy. And, you know, shows up with a present. And then, you know, then he meets her a couple days after that. He picks her up from school. And they go downtown, to downtown Stony Brook. And they go shopping, and he buys her earrings. He's like, you should you should get your another hole pierced in your ear. Or, you know, you should cut your hair and all these things. And then at the end of the book, when she realizes that he's actually seeing somebody else, like, they were never, there was no physical relationship involved. Like, he didn't kiss her, or I think he might have held her hand, but that was probably it. I mean, it was all very tame. But, you know, if you remember back to when you were 13 and some guy is paying attention to you, you do build it up into your head a lot bigger than it actually is. So I understand that part of it coming from Dawn, you know, like, I get it. I think that was portrayed quite realistically. But then, you know, when she confronts him and she's like, blah, 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 you know, and like, why are you trying to get me to change myself? And he's like, well, I was just trying to offer you some suggestions, kind of an idea. I don't understand his motivation. That's the one thing that bothered me throughout this whole book, is why he was doing it. Like, why it wasn't like it was a joke, you know, which would have been horrible for her, you know, but it's not like he was like told by somebody, oh, you know, try and get this middle schooler to blah, 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 you know, like, I think he just kind of wanted somebody to show off to, in a way, because he kept, every time they talked, she barely had to say anything. He would be like, oh, you know, I was asked to join the swim team, and the coach thinks I'm the best at football, and blah, 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 you know? So, you know, like, it was a good enough story. I mean, again, I really think that Dawn's character was portrayed very well as a 13-year-old in this type of a relationship. And her parents, like her mom and stepdad, obviously put their foot down right away, are like, no, you can't see this boy. He's much older than you. You know, what do you possibly have in common? It reminds me, and it's something that will stick with me forever. A comment my mother made to me, I think I was in the 8th grade, so I probably would have been about 13 or 14 years old. And there was a guy at school that I'd known since kindergarten. Like, most of the people that I went to school with, public school with, I knew from kindergarten. You know what I mean? There was like a handful of us. And I came home that day, it was a Friday, and I was so excited because, was his name Adam? Like, Adam, or was it? Yeah, it was Adam. We're gonna go out, you know, or what was it? My boyfriend or something like that. And my mother's comment was, where are you gonna go? You don't have a car. You don't have any money. Where are you gonna go? So, like, not that my parents ever said to me, you know, you can't date till you're 16. It was nothing at all like that. But it was just the logical thing, like, I'm dating this guy. Okay, if you're dating, means you're going out on dates. Where are you going? Without any money, without a car, without, you know what I mean? And reading this book, it threw me back to that. And isn't that funny? It was one thing that she said to me, like in the kitchen at our house, a throwaway comment that has still stuck with me, and I still remember it. Yeah, so I just kind of found that funny while I was reading this book. But anyway, like I said, not the best book in the series, but I think it was well done. The next book that I finished was Cowboy to the Core by Maisie Yates. This is a contemporary romance novel. It is book number 6 in the Gold Valley series. Narrated on audio by Suzanne Elise Freeman. Published originally in 2019. This one just came out in June, I think. Average rating of 4.26 stars on Goodreads, and I gave it 4 stars. So this is one, like I said, it's book number 6 now. I actually skipped book 5, not on purpose. I was reading the first 4 books, and then this one was sent to me as an ARC, and I jumped ahead and read this one, so I do need to go back and read book 5, which is Bree's story. So you kind of get a taste of what happened in Bree's story because you see kind of the two of them together, like Bree and the guy that she ends up with in her book. But in this one, this is Jamie's story, and you meet Jamie in book number 1. She is the younger sister to the 3 or 4 brothers, and she's very much a tomboy. Her mother passed away 2 days after she was born, and she grew up on the ranch around the horses with her dad and her brothers and blah blah blah. So she's learned that I can be just as good as the guys, and I totally don't need a guy. Like I'm happy by myself. And then she meets Gabe, and she is now actually trying to get a job off the ranch because her entire life everything's kind of been handed to her. She was kind of given this job doing trail rides at the ranch, and her brothers and her father are going to take care of her. She wants to kind of strike out on her own. So she gets this side job working for Gabe, and he used to be a rodeo champion, and he is like they're training horses together. And he's kind of a womanizer. He would go after, as they call them, the buckle bunnies in the rodeo, and then the two of them end up starting a relationship, and it's really, really cute. There is a bit of an age gap between the two of them. I think she's like 26 to his 33 or something like that. But it was very I liked it because, and also because he's had so much, even beyond the age gap, which isn't that big a deal. It was more the life experience gap, because she spent her whole life kind of cocooned on this ranch, being taken care of by her dad and her brothers, whereas he's been out on the rodeo circuit. He's had these experiences and he's lived this life. So, but they are able to teach each other different things, and it was really, really good, and I really enjoyed it. The Gold Valley series is really great. It does get very hot and spicy. This is Maisie Yates, but it is so well done, and I really, really love it. The next one I read was Unleashed by Diana Palmer. This is another contemporary romance novel. Book number 50 in the Long Tall Texan series. I think I said before, this is definitely not a series I think you need to read in any kind of order. Published originally in 2019, this one was also sent to me as an ARC. Average rating of 3.98 stars on Goodreads. I gave this one 3.5 stars. So I have read a handful of Diana Palmer's books. Nothing really in the last, I don't think any since I've started this channel. But I did used to read a number of them. I mean, she's very prolific. She, I think I've seen this or heard this or something, that she's kind of, in a way, the queen of contemporary cowboy romance. Like, she is where a lot of these kind of books have branched off from. She's been writing these books for a million years, it seems like. And she definitely has a way she writes. She has a story type. It's always a younger, more experienced girl and an older, a younger, less experienced girl and an older, more experienced man. And in this case, the gentleman in question, his name is Coulter. He is a Texas Ranger. And Clancy, which is our female lead, she is his secretary, or girl about town, or girl Friday, or whatever you want to call her. And it's not that I dislike Diana Palmer's writing, but again, she writes to a certain type of story. That very alpha male, I am here to take care of you, and the woman wants to be taken care of. I'm not trying to generalize, because I haven't read all of her books, and it's been many, many years since I've read her books, and I know she has a huge legions of fans. I know Sissy from the Romance Queen of BookTube absolutely loves her work, and it's well written. But for me, I just find the books that I've read by her, the woman is very meek and very, yes, please, could you look after me, kind of an idea. And I'm not mocking it. If you like that, that's great. I know there are people who absolutely love alpha male romances. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of those kind of things, and I'm not saying that necessarily that that's what these are. They can be in a way, because I think that's the whole point of the alpha male, is the guy stepping in to take charge kind of an idea. But with this book, I mean, I gave it 3.5 stars, so I did enjoy it. But outside of the romance between Clancy and Coulter, what I didn't like was I didn't feel the passion between the two of them. You know what I mean? He was sort of in another relationship with somebody else. You know, seeing somebody or wanted to see somebody and then kind of fell for Clancy. But she has this like really sad backstory where she was beaten pretty badly by her stepbrother, and then her grandfather went missing, and her stepfather was killed, and her mother was killed years earlier. So she's looking after her half-brother, her much younger half-brother. And it's a very sad backstory, and she's dirt poor, as it says several times throughout the book. But outside of the relationship between the two characters, our two main characters, was the mystery aspect of the story, of what happened to Clancy's grandfather, and what happens when her stepbrother gets out of jail. That part was really intriguing, and I really, really enjoyed it. I just didn't feel the passion between our two main characters. So, like I said, I've only read a handful of Diana Palmer. I really can't speak too much on her work, but if you've read other books by her and you're a fan of hers, are there any that you would recommend? Because I would really like to give some more of her work a try. So yeah, so please do let me know in the comments below. So the next book I finished was Giant Days Volume 1, and this is by John Allison, Lisa Treeman, and Whitney Cougar, or Koger, I believe. This is a graphic novel. It's a contemporary graphic novel. This is actually Giant Days issues number 1 through 4. So this was a bind-up of the first 4 issues. Published originally in 2015. Average rating of 3.99 stars on Goodreads, guys. I gave this one 5 stars. Oh my gosh, I loved this graphic novel so much. I talked about this last week in my Friday reads, because I was reading it at the time, or would have been reading it over the weekend, last weekend. I absolutely loved it. If you guys have not read this series, you need to read it. It is adorable. So it's about 3 friends in their first year at university in England, and they are 3 very different girls. Susan is kind of the studious, feminist, you know, I guess, character. And then you've got Esther. Esther is my favorite character. I adore Esther. She is kind of a very sweet Disney princess type goth, where she's like gothy, like, you know, whenever you see her drawn, like if she's in her pajamas. There was one of the issues in this bind-up where all 3 of the girls caught the flu, and Esther's in bed, and she's got like pajama pants with skulls on them, you know what I mean? But she's very sweet. She's the kind of, like, when I say Disney princess, what I mean is, you know, she could be standing outside and a bird could flitter to her shoulder kind of an idea, where she's a goth, but she's very, very sweet. But she can get very angry, but I love her. She is my favorite. And then there's Daisy, who's very quiet, very meek, very shy. You know, this is her first time away from home, and she was homeschooled for most of her life, and, oh, I love this series. I am so thrilled that I decided to pick it up after hearing about Karen from Rather Be Reading talk about it so much. And yeah, I mean, I've not really been much of a graphic novel reader because I'm not into the whole superhero culture thing. I don't even know if that's a thing, a superhero culture. But, you know, like the Marvel and DC movies. And I read comic books religiously growing up. Oh my gosh, I read so many Archie comics. But beyond that, as I got into my teens, I mean, I read through the X-Files, the X-Men. I loved Excalibur. You know, I'm doing a throwback to those of you who used to read, like, Marvel comics. I loved Excalibur. I read Silver Sable. I read Wonder Woman. You know, like, I read these comic books, and I loved them. But then I got out of it in my mid to late 20s, and I'm just not interested anymore. So I've kind of stayed away from graphic novels because I wanted something like this. This is what I wanted, was some fun graphic novel like this that I could in a way relate to. Do you know what I mean? And I highly encourage you to check these out. If you have not read these, try and borrow them from your library. Check them out. They are absolutely delightful. Really, seriously, absolutely delightful. The next book that I finished was Daughter of Destiny by Lindsay McKenna. I have it right here. This is a romantic suspense novel. It is Sisters of the Ark book number 1, and it is also Silhouette Bombshell book number 1. This was published originally in 2004. Average rating of 3.81 stars on Goodreads. I gave this 3.5 stars. I enjoyed this one. This was part of my 40 Years of Harlequin project. And the story of this one is about a woman named, Kia, and his name is Jake. So those are our 2 main characters, Kia and Jake. And She was given an honorable discharge from the Army after filing a complaint on a fellow officer for sexual harassment. And she doesn't know what to do with herself, so she's gone back home to the family's reservation. She is Native American, and her grandmother sends her kind of on a dream quest and, try and figure out what next step she's going to take in her life. She ends up having these recurring dreams or visions of these 3 sacred artifacts that belong to Native American tribes. And so her grandmother urges her to try and find one because these 3 artifacts that she's been dreaming about have all gone missing. So this is the story of her trying to locate one of them in Australia. And this is really, really good. Now, this is a romantic suspense, obviously. There is, it's got that kind of mystery element to it. But beyond that, this is a fantastic military romance. I know that's almost a subgenre of its own, but Lindsay McKenna writes military romances amazingly. She is former, what did it say in her author bio? She served in the U.S. Navy. So she knows her crap when she's talking about it. But yeah, this story was really, really good. The Native American culture was very well represented, I found. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And it's set in Australia. I mean, I have a love of Australia and Alaska. I guess maybe because they're 2 places I don't know if I'll ever get to see. But any books that are set in any of those locations, it really intrigues me. And this one I really, really liked, and I'm really happy that I read it. The next one that I finished was Magic and Macaroons by Bailey Cates. This is, of course, a cozy mystery series. Magical Bakery Mystery number 5. This was narrated on audio by Amy Rubinate. Published originally in 2015. Average rating of 4.05 stars on Goodreads. I gave this one 3.5 stars. This was absolutely another enjoyable installment in this series. I am loving this cozy mystery series. If you have not checked this one out, you need to. Our main character's name is Katie Lightfoot, and she has just moved. In the first book, she moved from, I think, Ohio to Savannah, Georgia. So the whole series takes place in Savannah, Georgia. And it is about her running this bakery with her aunt and uncle. But her aunt is a witch. And Katie herself comes from a long line of witches. So she doesn't find all this out, though, until she moves to Savannah and starts hanging out with her, like spending time with her aunt. She has a little dog, so there is a cozy, in a cozy mystery, there is a companion, a little animal companion, and his name is Mungo. He is a little schnauzer type dog. And anyway, in this story, the thing I like about this series, and this one I found even more so, is that these books can tend to be a bit darker in context and in what the story's about than your average cozy mystery story. For example, and I'm bringing this one up because I am lending this book to my mom to read. Not this one I'm talking about, but this. I'm lending my mother Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder by Joanna Fluke because she was looking for something else to read. She's like, I'd really like a mystery for something different. I thought my mom would really like this series. So I'm going to lend her the first book in that series. Now, those books are really wholesome. Very down home. The person was murdered. They were eating chocolate chip cookies in their car, and, were they poisoned or what have you? It was, yes, there was a murder, and I get that, but it was tame. Whereas, in retrospect, this book deals with voodoo, deals with people coming back from the dead, deals with, seeing voodoo priests and, curses and things like that's why I'm saying it tends to run a bit darker in theme than your average cozy mystery series, if that makes sense. The other thing I really, really like about this series is the way the witches are portrayed. Yes, you get that whole family lineage thing that makes it sound a bit supernatural, like they have magical powers that are passed down through the generations, but that's not it. They don't wag their fingers or wiggle their nose, to get things to happen. They need to manifest it. And in the bakery, they put their good intentions into the stuff that they bake. For example, chocolate is, everybody knows chocolate makes you happy, right? It's like almost like an aphrodisiac in a way. Not just for romantic love, but just for happiness. I don't know about you guys, but if I am feeling a little sad, I will have a piece of chocolate and it will often cheer me up because it's got that uplifting property to it. Whereas in these books, in this series, they'll be making chocolate chip cookies, for example, and they will put their good intentions, their thoughts, and their feelings into these cookies. And then the people who eat them, in turn, will feel better. Does that make sense? It's a very natural, very kitchen witch, very true more true neo-paganism witchcraft. And they mention, you know, neo-paganism and Wicca and stuff like that in this book, or in this series. And I really, really love that aspect of it. You know, I just think it's really refreshing to read something that's a little bit there. It still does have that supernatural element to it, that almost magical realism aspect to it. But I feel that as opposed to some cozy mystery series that involve witches, this one is a little bit more true to life, if that makes any sense. The next book that I finished was Summer Days by Susan Mallory. This is another contemporary romance novel, book number 7 in the Fool's Gold series, published originally in 2012. Average rating of 4.07 stars on Goodreads, and I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. So this is Heidi and Rafe's story. So the premise of this one at the very beginning, I kind of went, really? Like that just, it seemed like really far-fetched. But I mean, it's fiction, you know, there's a lot of things that are going to be really far-fetched. So in this story, we meet our main character, Heidi, and she lives at a farm, or at a ranch, and she owns the ranch, and she raises goats, and I love that fact that she raises goats, and all the goats are named after goddesses. Like, she's got Athena and Persephone, and, oh, it's adorable. And she makes soap and cheeses and milk from the goat milk, essentially. So anyway, at the beginning of the story, her grandfather, who lives with her, sold her ranch when it wasn't his to sell. So he sold it to this woman. It's actually Rafe's mother, May. And he sold it to her to get $250,000 to give to his friend who is battling cancer. So essentially it was like a Robin Hood kind of an idea, stealing from the rich to give to the poor, so his best friend could survive cancer. So anyway, it's at the very beginning of this book, this has all kind of come out, saying that this wasn't his ranch to sell. They are now indebted to May for $250,000, and this is fraud to the 10th degree. So, of course, Rafe shows up, and he's a hard-nosed city businessman, and, you know, he's partially to blame for this because he didn't read these contracts before his mother signed them, and before he signed them. So, kind of a buyer beware kind of an idea. But the judge, you know, in typical small-town contemporary romance novel fashion, says, well, I haven't made a decision yet. You both have good cases, so why don't you try sharing the ranch for, like, a few months? And then we'll make a decision on exactly what to do. So then it ends up that they all end up living in this house together, the 4 of them, Heidi and her grandpa Glenn, and then Rafe and his mother May. And of course a romance blossoms between Rafe and Heidi. And, you know, but throughout the whole book, I really did feel that Rafe was a bit of an a-hole. He just, no matter what, even when he was like sleeping with Heidi, he still wanted to win. He still wanted to, you know, he wanted to win the ranch, and that was the end of the story. No matter how he knew that this was her livelihood, and that this was her dream, and that her mother, or his mother, obviously had the money, and so did he, to go and buy any other ranch that she wanted. She wanted that one because at one point she had worked at it. So there's a bit of a backstory with that too, and I get it. But if you're falling for this girl, and you're still trying to take away her livelihood, you're still a bit of an a-hole, in my opinion. So yeah, so didn't absolutely love Rafe, or else this would have gotten a higher star rating, but I did like the fact that he called her Goat Girl, because I thought that that was adorable. And yeah, so another great installment in this series. I do love this series so much, and obviously looking forward to continuing. And then the last book that I finished this week was My Unexpected Forever by Heidi McLaughlin. This is a new adult contemporary romance. Beaumont book number 2, narrated on audio by Nelson Hobbs and Stephanie Rose. Published originally in 2013, average rating of 4.32 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 3 stars. Did not love this one. I actually read this one instead of the one by Elle Kennedy. Was that the one I was going to read? I can't remember. If I remember, I'll put the name of the one I was originally going to read. This is for my summer romance book bingo for the new adult category. I thought I had the book by Elle Kennedy, that I had bought it, but I hadn't. I was going to buy it. Then after reading Paper Princess a few weeks ago, I was a little disheartened. And I didn't really want to delve into this one, into the one I was originally going to read. So I decided to read this one because I looked through my currently ongoing series, and I read the first book, Forever My Girl, in this series a couple years ago. And I thought, well, why not? It's considered to be new adult on Goodreads, so I will go ahead and read this one. So the premise of this story, it is a continuation in a way of the first book, Forever My Girl, but it is different characters. You can read it without reading the first one, but you know, it's completely up to you. This is the story of Caitlin and Harrison, and Harrison is part of a band. So the Beaumont series is about this band, and the first book was about Liam, who is the lead singer, and he is the drummer. Harrison is the drummer, and Caitlin is best friends with, I think Paige was the girl's name from the first book. So in the first book, Liam comes back to town because his best friend died, and his best friend was Caitlin's husband. And she has twin daughters, and she's just trying to get on with her life and blah 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 blah. So in this book, Harrison shows up at the end of the first book, and so of course this is now their story, and he is trying to woo her essentially. And he kind of fell for her the second he met her, but her husband's only been dead for like a few months, and so then this jumps forward about 6 months from the first book. So my main issues with this story was the angst and the unneeded drama. This story had enough drama as it was, in my opinion, without adding any extra drama into it. I mean, her husband had passed away. She is a widow. That is a lot to deal with. And he is a rock star, and he has a son, and she has the 2 girls. That should have been enough, but they had to introduce this whole ex-girlfriend and this other thing, and it's just like, really? It was way too much. The other thing is that throughout the entire book, Caitlin just kept harping on the fact, and this goes back and forth between each perspective, which is of course why there's 2 different narrators, and how, oh, she hates his tattoos, and oh my god, his tattoos, and oh my god, tattoos. It's like, shut up about it. If you don't like them, great, move on. I don't need to hear about it every 3rd page. And then him, all he thought about was like trying to get in her pants essentially. There was no, I mean, I know that when you meet a person, generally it's the way they look is the first thing that you notice, and I get that. And then you eventually, fall in love with other things like their personality or their witty sense of humor or, whatever. But I just felt the entire book, and this is, again, I hate harping back on the fact that I'm not a fan of new adult, but I find that this is a hallmark of new adult novels, that it's all about the physical relationship. Whereas you get much more emotional stories as the characters get older, as you get to more adult novels. I'm not saying that there's not adult novels that deal with this as well, that they're almost purely based on the physical, aspect of the relationship. But it's just, that's all he talked about. I'm like, and like, even at the end of the first book, it creeped me out. Her husband just died. Stop looking at her butt. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm too old for this stuff. I don't know. But, I mean, it wasn't an unlikable story. I didn't mind the characters. Actually, I thought my favorite parts of the book were the parts with the kids. There's this whole scene where they take the kids to Disney. It was really fun, and I was reading some reviews after on Goodreads, after I finished the book, and people were complaining about the kids, and I'm like, okay, maybe that shows my age. Like, as an adult, I like seeing, more family kind of aspects, even though I'm not a big fan of surprise pregnancies or, books that feature heavily with kids. But if kids are going to be in the story, at least do it properly, and that's how I liked it. That, but anyways, so I'm not going to go off on a rant, but I didn't dislike it. I think the whole series is available as part of the Audible Romance package. I know the first book was made into a movie last year, and I'll tell you, if you have seen the movie, I don't think it did very well in theaters, but I remember watching the trailer because I thought, oh wait, I read that book, maybe I'll want to go see the movie. And I watched the trailer on YouTube, and it has nothing to do with the book. Like, they were so different. In my opinion, it seems so different from the book. So that kind of disappointed me a little bit, and I've never seen it. So I can't say whether the movie was any good or not. The first book I actually liked a lot better than this one. So if you're interested, check out the first book. Again, it's part of the Audible Romance package, or Audible Escape, or whatever it's called now. So if you're interested, go ahead and check it out. So anyway, guys, that is everything that I read this week. 8 books. It was a big reading week for me. A lot, I finished a graphic novel, so, they're not terribly long. But yeah, it was a good week. Mostly pretty good books. I mean, I had a 5-star in there, too, which was great. I haven't had a 5-star reading forever. I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag later this week. I'm actually going to film it next as soon as I'm done this. But I was looking through, and I've only read 5 5-star books this year. Only 5. I am very stingy in a way when it comes to a 5-star read. There are a lot of books that got 4.5 stars. I will admit. A lot of books will get a 4.5 star rating for me. But for it to hit a 5-star, I am a little bit stingy with that 5-star rating. But anyway, guys, that is all that I have for you today. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them, or what was your favorite book that you read this week. And until my next video, everybody, take care and happy reading. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Bye.